Yeah.
Hey, welcome to Dunne and Dunne.
Yeah.
A world-building LiveCast.
Yeah. So, hope you guys found your way okay. If not, there are maps everywhere. In theory.
The world is built of that, anyway.
Yes. So, I'm Dee, and this is Steve.
Hi.
And we want to talk a little bit today about what this LiveCast is going to be like, what it's going to be. First of all, it's going to be every other Thursday. So technically, we'd normally be doing this on Thursday, but this week it just so happened that Wednesday was the day we had time. So we're doing it Wednesday. And then you'll see us again in 2 weeks. And I just realized my sound might be on here, over here. No, it's not. Fantastic. Holy crap. This is bad. This is real bad. So we're going to talk about world building and things that go along with that. We're going to be talking specifically more in a tabletop RPG type environment, but being as we're both writers as well, and I'm not a DM and not particularly interested in gaming anyhow. So likely what we're going to be doing a lot of talking about is just the idea of building a world. So
yeah.
We have a lot of different subject matters that we're going to cover within that. And it's going to be kind of just like spitball-y. Just what we feel like talking about that day.
Yeah.
So, you might see a couple days before that a description completely changes. Or a couple days before is even kind of generous for us.
Or if we have a description and it just ends up being completely different, and we may not even change it.
Yeah.
It's exciting. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Tune in to find out.
Tune in to find out. Hard to say. So Steve has, why don't you talk a little bit about your...
little background.
Yeah, a little
who
background.
I am, what I'm about.
That's it. So there you go.
So is this my camera?
That's your camera.
Is this my camera?
I put the camera right there.
All right. So, not that I can look anything in the eye anyway, but, that's because,
Well,
that thing.
If not, we can do this. Or maybe
number
this.
Two. Okay.
Yeah.
No.
It's really not that much different.
So much tomfoolery. And Tom's not even here.
Yeah. So that's camera now.
All right, cool. Hey, camera. So, a little bit of background. So, yes, as Dee had mentioned, I am a writer. Been doing that, my entire life. I'm 43 now and pretty much started when I was, 10, working on stories.
It's this one.
Okay. So, but as far as DMing, I say DMing because, I started with Dungeons & Dragons. And everybody knows tabletop role-playing. Is pretty familiar with, at least has heard of Dungeons & Dragons. So, but really, I've been doing tabletop role-playing for 31 years.
And most of that time doing DM type items.
Yeah. So I started playing when I was 7, but I started really seriously running games when I was 10 or 11. Okay. And I've just been doing that ever since. And
YouTube's kind of bitching about that camera, so we're just going to turn it back to that one.
Okay.
It didn't like the resolution on that camera.
Yeah, whatever.
I've been, let me see. I didn't do a whole lot of like tabletop RPG type items. I did more, I guess you'd call it LARP, but just hanging out with your friends and just making shit up. And I did a ton of that as a child. And then as I've grown, I've used those skills of, I should probably mention the fact I am an actor, as well. So I have that kind of milieu, that kind of situation going on. So, I become the things that I write about. I become the things that I think about sometimes in some circumstances. That's kind of like my whole like construction of my personality and who I am and what I am, being autistic as well. I mask pretty frequently, and most likely if you've seen me in public for any period of time, you've seen me in my mask. I don't really unmask too often. So because of that, it kind of creates some kind of like different weird pathway situations going on in your brain. So I'm kind of wired for storytelling, I think. And a lot of people that have read my stuff agrees, but I've only really ever released a book of autobiographical poetry. I have lots and lots of novels in a completed state that I send out to my friends and they read the first 5 pages of and glow about, and then I never hear about it again. So it is what it is. But yeah, we're gonna start this really proper in 2 weeks, I guess we said. Yeah. I can't look at the schedule right now.
The 11th is next Thursday, so the Thursday after that.
I think I have one scheduled for the 11th.
Okay. So in 1 week.
In 1 week, because we wanted to have it opposite of, we do a not live cast on Thursdays called Breakfast for Dinner, which we usually would be recording that right now. But,
it's more of a personal vlog.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same thing. So, kind of more like what the channel's doing and what we're doing specifically with the YouTube channel. And, fun things like that. It's a good time, though. And yeah, no doubt, once you've shown up for this, you're probably going to check out some of our other content. And, we welcome it. Please do, and like and subscribe and all that stuff, if it suits you. But I will tell you, liking and or subscribing, well, mostly subscribing and ringing the little bell thing, you'll know when we go live. And that way you don't have to keep track of, is this Breakfast for Dinner or is this a Dunne and Dunne night?
It's the best way to know.
Yeah. What do the alarms tell you, my dear?
What do they tell you? So, but just to get back on the storytelling aspect. So, I feel like storytelling is one of the foundational elements of culture.
Yeah.
So, like, even before, obviously before we had electronics, before we had any of this wonderful media that we have now. Wonderful media. We had stories, right?
Yes.
People, the archetypal sitting around campfires, telling tales. You'd have a story leader who would take people through the tale and give them hopefully it provides entertainment, it provides a sense of hope, it provides a moral lesson sometimes.
Yeah,
depending on the story, of course.
We have a very good friend that does stories for the Moth, and one of the things that she talks about, the reason that she learned how to tell a story was because the more entertaining you were as a child, the more likely you weren't going to be sent to bed early.
You've earned your stay up time.
Exactly. So, she talked a little bit about that with us a few times. And, it's kind of how my family was too, but after a while it was just like, you're kind of annoying, you need to go sleep.
Yeah, when I was growing up, imagination definitely was seen as a thing of premium. That's except for the times when my mom would tell me, "Oh, you're so imaginative," like I was lying. Essentially, she's like, "Oh, you have such a vivid imagination." It's like, no, Mom.
The amount of times I heard that.
Oh, you have such a vivid imagination.
The amount of times I heard that growing up, because like people would say, like I would be concerned about being abducted by aliens or concerned about this or that or the other. And my family was always like, wow, you're so imaginative. It's like, no, I am in crisis. Help me.
I'm terrified.
I'm fucking terrified.
This is not imagination for me. This is what's actually happening.
Right. This is what's going on in the think meet right now. Yep. So yeah, it's, and storytelling provided an important escapism for a lot of different reasons in my life as a child. And, I could get lost in those places. And that was important with a lot of the chaos that kind of went on at home. And I think that that's also kind of a common thing within this milieu. It's just kind of what it is. And so we want to talk about how to make a story compelling. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's certainly an element.
Right. That's like how to make the story compelling, how to make it so that, your players or your audience or whomever is interested in what you have to say. And some ways that you can kind of like turn things on their ear a little bit if you feel like you're getting a little bit too stuck in a rut, which happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens especially with your DMs, your GMs, and definitely for novelists as well. I can tell you that from personal fact.
Yeah, it's like as a writer, as an author, you have the Although, deadlines and things like that are, horrible and terrifying if you're trying to make a living off of your work. You're not one of those, really enthusiastic hobbyists like myself. I make a small amount of money off of my work. Very little.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The point is to get it out there in a platform for maybe somebody might want to buy it. That's great. But it's out there. That's the more important part.
Whereas mine has never seen the light of day.
Right. But the thing about I lost it. Go ahead. Keep going.
The thing about things.
I know it's gone now.
Gone forever. Oh, I unfocused the camera.
Just like the camera is gone forever. Okay, there it is.
Oh, we came back. Yeah,
I got it back. Writer's block. Okay,
yes.
So provided
that was the thing.
Irony. I forgot about the writer's block. So, but don't forget about the writer's strike anyway. No, but the thing is, if you're not specific, if you're not solely relying on your writing for your income, writer's block can be a luxury. It's not a good thing, but it's like, oh, I can't write, I'll just put it away. It's not like, I can't write, my family's gonna starve, or I can't write, I'm gonna get kicked out on the street. Whereas in a tabletop role playing situation, you can't have blockages. You just can't. You have to keep going. You have to roll with it.
Yeah, you got to just figure out how to make that work. So it's part improvisation even. And,
absolutely.
It's having good improv skills is a lot of practice. It's just a matter of practicing over and over and over again, which, I'll tell you, yes, you can practice improvisation. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't think you can, but no, you actually for reals can practice improvisation.
There are intensive courseworks in improv, like several classes deep, and if you go to theater school, they teach improv. It's a thing that can be taught.
Yeah, and it's not teaching. You can't teach some of the on-the-fly shit. Mm-hmm. People just have to think of that. Right. But when you get your brain thinking in that particular way, it makes it a whole lot easier to figure out what it is that's being said.
Yep. And it comes with practice, right?
Absolutely, yes. And it takes time to get that practice down to a science.
And it's just like get a little tangential. That's another thing we do. We're very, we go places. So, the blues.
Yeah.
Something you're very fond of.
Yeah.
Something that was said to me many, many years ago about the blues was real skill with an instrument is the ability to take something that is extremely difficult and make it sound easy.
Yes.
And that's the thing about the blues. It just sounds effortless. It just rolls off. But any guitarist who's tried to play John Lee Hooker knows it ain't easy.
Yeah. You can play the 12-bar blues, and that sounds good, and everybody will be able to recognize whatever song it is that you're playing. Mm-hmm. But if you do so with proficiency and chutzpah and a lot of extra improvisational tools and whatever it is that you come up with, that's the difference between a, that was okay, to a, yes, this was amazing.
Yes. It's the difference between corduroy and velvet.
Exactly. So, and you got to remember that thing that's said about the blues, right?
What's that?
The first line of the blues is always repeated twice. It's a little blues
First
joke.
line of the blues is always repeated twice?
That's the one, yes.
Okay, you gotta say it twice, though. Yes. So we also don't want to make this all about how to be a DM, right? Because there's a million different podcasts.
Because I would fall asleep.
Yeah, it's just, first of all, it's just very... it's kind of a wasted exercise.
Yeah.
Because everybody does it differently. Mm-hmm. It's like you can tell a person how to drive. Everyone has different driving style. There are basic mechanics of driving.
Yeah.
But everybody has a different way about it.
It's true.
Or telling a person how to write a story. At very best, if they follow your directions to the T,
they'll have one of your stories.
Exactly. They will just replicate your story.
Yep.
But one of the things we wanted to get into was over the course of this show, not today, but over the course of the run of it, is the idea of, like we mentioned, world building. So for me, when I was out walking the dog today, I had the thought of what makes world building.
Hi, Eric.
Hey. Mwah. What makes world building different from just writing? I mean, okay, so there's story, right, which is your plot, your procedures, your things that happen. Mm-hmm. And then there's world building.
Yes.
Which I think for me, the main difference is immersive storytelling.
Yeah.
That's what world building is to me.
I get that.
So, you can read it, best example I can think of. So you can read a short story.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Dickens was phenomenal for this. Even though he set his stories in real world settings.
Right.
But by reading it, you can read a 10-page story and you have the sense that you have lived years in the life of this character.
Yeah.
You'll pull something like, or a friend of ours, Brad.
Yeah.
When I've read his stuff, I've had the honor of being able to read some of his work, which, he's another one that doesn't publish, doesn't put things out, just writes and puts it in a drawer. So he, I was reading a story of his. He was talking about a character that, and going back to pulling a thing out of a drawer, pulled a journal out of a drawer and was going through it. And just the idea of, and then describing the 5 or 6 items that were in that drawer. And it gives a whole, even though they are technically, if you want to be a plot purist, they are detractors. But I call it a flavor win. Anyway, so...
You went a long way for that joke.
Yeah, I had to carry it. I got a backache from carrying that joke so far. Anyway, so that's just the idea of being able to, and it's about extrapolation and interpolation, right? So extrapolation, taking a thing and expanding it out. Interpolation, taking a thing that's there and really getting at the minutia of it.
And one of the things that needs to be understood as well is that even with those things that don't... Yes, that Brad. Yes. It says Brad. See?
Oh.
Because Eric is talking to you.
Gotcha.
Yes. But even on top of that, even if something doesn't seem to fit, like one of the exercises that they made us do in school was to write a comparison paper between 2 completely different items. So I chose cows and bowling balls because this is the kind of bitch I am. And if you're skilled enough, you can make those things similar, not because they are similar, but because you can make yourself believe that they are similar and write it in that milieu, within that case.
So like finding commonalities where there wouldn't normally be them.
Right, exactly. And you got to kind of it's improvisation. You got to get your mind around, okay, these are the 2 new scenarios. What is the case with these 2 scenarios, right? Where do they fit? That's kind of the joy of writing, is figuring out where all of those pieces that you have, just strands coming through your head, where they fit and how they mesh together. And, it's a meditative practice too, just to sit there and type or write. It's a meditative practice. It's a way of kind of getting back into the back of your head, into the back of your psyche, and kind of just pulling stuff out to figure out what all that means. So.
And I'm going to take a second here. I didn't realize it was Eric Stark we were talking about. I thought you were talking about Eric Reed.
Yeah.
Yes, Eric. Brad Batchelor. I believe you know him. I believe you've spent some time with him on the LARP field. So, yeah, that's the Brad I'm talking about.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize it wasn't the
that's
other
okay.
Eric.
Yeah, that's all right. Hey, there's a lot of people, a lot of names.
Yes. Well, from this distance as well.
Yeah, for sure.
It's that could be. Hey, I know the first name.
So the idea of immersion.
Yeah.
And the idea of making it and role playing is really known for this, right?
Yeah.
So I've known a lot of people who are, book lovers, right?
Yes.
Who say they get lost in a story.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's normally how most people kind of absorb a book, is they allow themselves to become part of that story, and they read upon it, and all the characters have the name or the voice you think in their head, and it's a unique experience, but at the same time, it is also unique to specific people, how they extrapolate and how they interpret that story within their mind.
Yeah, so but for myself, being a person who has ADHD, reading is very difficult for me. I have to read, and as the years have gone on, and my cognitive functioning in that regard has, I think, gotten more, I don't know, frayed, I guess. It takes me a long time to, like, I have to read and read and reread and reread, and if there's anything going on, forget about it. Now, when I'm properly medicated, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But usually when I'm reading, it's in the evening time, when those meds have all worn off.
Yeah.
But, which is why I think I took so readily to tabletop role-playing, because it is, by its nature, immersive and storytelling, but you don't read anything.
World building, your world building is trying to create conflicts. That's, I could let a psychologist talk a long time about that. But, that's the thing, is what sparks it for you. Steve talks about the Nugget. That's what he refers to.
We can talk about the Nugget.
Let's talk about the Nugget.
So, whenever I start a setting or a world, I always start with one central idea that I lovingly refer to as the Nugget, because I love nuggets.
Nuggies.
Nugs. So, it's always an idea like, okay, so, like, let's look at Shadowrun, for example. People who know what Shadowrun is, great. If you don't, it's a cyberpunk role-playing game that is set in the near future. Of course, that near future we've now gone past, which is funny. When you look at old science fiction, it's like...
just funny.
Oh, it's like, oh, this takes place in the year 2020? Or like Cyberpunk 2020. It's like, guys, it's 2020 right now. It was 2020 last year.
Yeah. All of that should have already happened.
Exactly. It's like, hey, where's my cybernetic implants? But the thing about Shadowrun is it takes that cyberpunk setting and it says, but what if there was magic?
Yeah.
And that's the nugget of Shadowrun.
Yeah.
What if there was magic? And then it extrapolates upon that. It says, oh, we'd have this and that. And we'd have dragons. We'd have orcs. Yada, yada.
Yeah.
But for me, I'll just have, like, a stray thought and say, ooh, what would... Like, when I was 11, for example. Yeah. When I started making my grand work of my biggest setting that I have that ends up being a multiverse that blah, blah, whatever. It's a lot.
The multiverse.
There's a lot. There's a lot there. And, you know, if time permits, we can get into all the minutiae of that, too, and I'll try not to bore people to death. But the bottom line of it is, I said, what if there was a fantasy setting that was post-nuclear apocalyptic? And at the time, you know, I was a lover of things like Thundar the Barbarian and, you know, He-Man, which, you know, people laugh about in Masters of the Universe, but it does blend magic and technology pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, yeah. And I was big fans of those shows myself.
I particularly love the
reboot?
The reboot of She-Ra.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
It's really good.
As far as just I mean, the storytelling was good.
It was better than the original in that regard.
For sure.
The original was meant to be episodic and woman kill thing with big sword.
Right.
You know, and like, I was into that. She-Ra. I was big into that.
We're going to get DMCA for that? Anyway, so...
God, they hit us with a DMCA claim because I played Two-Headed Boy on the ukulele badly, mind you. It's really bad, and it still got a copyright claim.
Hey, you know, if you're not pissing off somebody in authority, are you really even doing anything right?
Punk for life, yo.
Punk. So,
but
but that's for me. That's like, and then I build it. It's like a germination point. It's like if you think about like a super cooled fluid, and then a grain of salt gets dropped into it. How it just creates that. That's how I world build. I start small and then I build out. Now I understand you have a slightly different process.
I have a lot of different processes, but the standard one that I go to is if I'm going to write, I kind of have a little bit of an idea in mind. Like not a nugget, but like okay, so this is something that I'm thinking about here. What if, this is the plot of one of the books I wrote, The Missing. What if on October 31st, one year, like a bunch of people just went missing. And like everybody was drugged and a bunch of people just went missing. And when they went missing, the internet was changed in order so that, people that were related to these people couldn't see them and, or see any of their social media or any of that stuff, and just kind of go from there. Like, okay. And then, it's kind of similar in that it's, starting with a point and expanding out, but it's not like just a singular point. It's, and then it always starts with just a very compelling sentence. I'll just type a sentence.
Yes. The kickoff.
Uh-huh. And that's how I do it. It's just, yes. I write the sentence. Okay. The sentence is written. This is what we're going off of. And hopefully it goes somewhere.
Yeah, one of my least favorite authors, and I'm probably catching some heat for this. And again, I don't read a whole lot. Reading's very difficult for me. But one of my least favorite authors also has one of my favorite opening lines to a book.
Yeah.
And that line is, "How fast does a man run when the devil is chasing him?"
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, that's a hot opening to a book. That's a hot
opening.
But, yeah, I'm not going to call out the name of the author. If you recognize that line, you know what I'm talking about. Yep. In my current world, elves have not had a child born in 500 years. The lifespan would normally 1,000 years. Yikes. So, like, I'm just reading a comment from our boy Eric here. In my current world build, elves have not had a child born in 500 years. The lifespan normally 1,000 years. So
that's his nugget.
Yeah. So that kind of your central point of where you've started and then you've built out from that. We're gonna go forward, and you can just catch up when you get it.
Yep.
So, it's been a blast so far. Awesome. Just gonna get off track for a second here. What system are you using, Eric? Or is this a novel?
I'm using the system of hitting my head repeatedly against the keyboard.
Keep banging. Just keep banging.
It'll eventually have. Oh, I broke the camera again.
Oh Lord, there it is.
There we go.
All right, so
we're over here.
Hey, Kim.
Hi.
So that's and I've like I said, I've been working on this one particular role-playing setting for 30 plus years.
Yes.
And I've since then built other worlds, and I've incorporated other settings into that world. It's kind of just become a
D&D.
There we go. Awesome.
Yep.
So that's how I get down, and as a result of that, I've done a lot of work in making role-playing settings, and in my writing, it's really less about so a little bit about what I write about. So I write pulp.
Yep.
They're adventure stories. They're about things that happen to characters.
Yeah.
They're not about necessarily, the human condition. They're not gonna explore. I'm not writing Prince of Tides. It's not nothing against that kind of writing. It's just that I'm trying to evoke a very specific emotion, and that is the emotion the emotion that you get from an action movie, where it's like, we're just having it's a popcorn movie for the lit world.
Right.
And I would not describe what I write as literature either. That's not at all what we're talking about. So the same sensibility applies to my world building. And I find, I was thinking about this today, I find that I'm actually more interested in lore than I am with plot.
I could see that. Yeah.
And I think that's probably gets in the way of my storytelling, my tabletop DMing, because I just want to roll out all this lore, all this information, all this background information, all this stuff.
And we seldom get to it.
And
honestly.
it really, it's like D&D or any game. Let's talk about D&D specifically, because there's dungeon right in the name. It's about a thing, a quest. You know, explore the dungeon, clear the dungeon, get to the tower, kill the wizard, yada yada.
Champion setting is 35 years old, so you understand.
Oh, heck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
They get rich, though. I mean, those settings, especially when they've been running for a long period of time, provided they don't stagnate, they'll change over time. They'll go through different eras, and it's just wild.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually had the same universe I've been writing in for, let's see, I was 20... I'm 41, so about 21 years.
That's awesome.
My world building universe is old enough to drink, or my one universe is old enough to drink, and basically, I wasn't convinced that all of my stories were in the same world, but they are, because there's the same quote unquote, not religious system, but more of a philosophical authority, as Steve Tolkien. No.
I don't know that anyone's ever said that before. I'm going to write that down. On Today I learned. Today, I was compared to J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not offended. I never thought that it's something that would ever be uttered, because like I said, I don't take it that seriously. I mean, I put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
But I know he was a very serious man.
Yeah. So, but yeah, my universe is old enough to drink, and basically, it's more about. I'm trying to think of the way to put it. It's not so much about the specific stories that happen within that milieu or within that universe. It's about the overarching themes of that universe, what the physics, quote unquote, look like, what the things look like. And I write basically sci-fi, urban explorer type item things. They're very strange, and
like urban dark fantasy. Also.
Urban dark fantasy, yeah, that would be probably a better way of putting it. The most recent one that I've written, which I'm still kind of in the process of working through, but I've had 3 years of writer's block now.
3, like 5, 7.
It's been a long time. But the book that I've been doing the most work on in the recent past is basically the concept is that the universe that this person, that the one character is living in, is just completely diametrically opposed to our own. In the first line of that book, and again, the first lines are where the hook. That's where I start. The first line of that book is, everybody has a Facebook. It's not even a choice anymore. It's just something that happens. And it goes on to explain what a world like that would look like. And, you're talking about a lot of surveillance, and, a lot of just kind of like things. But then about, I want to say halfway, 3/4 the way through, you realize that this universe that you've been told by the narrator is actually all in her head. And I'm sick of hearing about it.
Our dog was like, "Oh, not this again."
Yeah. But, it's actually all in her head. And basically, she was trying to do an experimental treatment on herself because she was having problems and didn't want to deal with things. So she tried to essentially, we call it in IT, we call it doing a partition on a drive. She essentially kept on partitioning parts of her head so that things could not escape. And it caused her to believe that everybody had a Facebook and everybody had to update things, and that all kinds of stuff that wasn't necessarily real was going on, And it's a hilarious book. I've read, everybody I've read it to or allowed to read it just laughs their ass off at it. I just need to get it done. at this point. It's like I almost just kind of want to be like, and then she died at the end, and it's like,
or did she? No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. You would. I'd pull that kind of bullshit.
No, I've pulled that. I pulled that very
the
thing.
End, or is it
the end of The Missing? She doesn't die. She rides off into the sunset.
Ah, yes.
You remember? And then
that's right.
You don't know what happens after that. There's no prologue. There's nothing. It's just she rode off.
Yep.
Why? What? It's like, and at that point in time, she's running this whole like anti-terrorism org or something, and she just rides off.
Pieces
on her bike.
Fuck out.
She's like, all right, y'all don't know me, I'm out. Deuces, magooses. Yep.
But it also gets me back to my thought about story versus world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you've got, now, in your particular circumstance, in The Missing.
Yeah.
So the story ends.
Yeah.
Right?
It just ends.
The story ends.
Yeah.
Because the protagonist is no longer carrying the story. Therefore, we believe that the story, you have no symbolic torch pass over to another protagonist.
Right. No,
so it just ends.
Yeah. It's like she was the linchpin in this whole thing, and
right.
now that she's gone, there's not really a story to talk about. Or if there is, it's another book.
Right, which I think is very common with writers who, who have a singular central protagonist.
Right.
Because after that protagonist is either their conflict is resolved or they're gone or whatever happens to them.
But here's the thing, right? As a writer, I've been doing this a very, very long time, just a very long time. And one of the things that we've always been taught as writers is you write or you read whatever it is that you want to write. So in other words, if you want to read or if you want to specifically talk about sci-fi, then you read a lot of sci-fi, this sort of stuff, right? So one of my favorite author is Morgan Llewellyn. And what she does in every single one of her books is there's a main protagonist. But then there are all these other protagonists. And the next chapter is in somebody else's voice again. And the next chapter is in somebody else's voice again. You may not even necessarily remember that character's name by the time it comes out. But it's like, okay, and but you can tell by the differences in the writing style. Like, this is definitely this voice. This is definitely that voice. And like, I've tried to pull that off, and it's actually a lot more difficult than it seems because you have to, instead of just building one worldview, because right now the way that things are, I have one worldview and I can just, but when you're talking about, okay, there's one worldview, but now you have to look at the worldview from 2 different points of view.
Yeah.
Or 5 different points of view, where this guy might be, really into it and really just cool with everything that's going on. This guy over here may not be. So it's tricky. And you've been writing a book for 30 years. You got 2 chapters done. Yeah. George R. R. Martin's your idol. Yeah.
Well, you have a similar production scale to George R. R. Martin. I'm kidding. It's just we have this joke about, is he ever going to finish that last book?
I don't think he will, but I hope he does.
Yeah, we just pray that he started it. No, I'm not. Again, big books intimidate me, and George R. R. Martin, along with your Robert Jordans and folks like that, got some big ass books. So for me,
I'm a speed reader, so
yeah, she's a great reader. I struggle.
Yeah.
So like audiobooks are cool, but then I get wrapped up in thinking about the character of the person's voice that's reading it and things like that. It's like our yeah. I'm gonna put a pin in that. I don't want to go down that rabbit trail. So
okay.
But to because Eric mentioned George R. R. Martin. That's actually a similarity that Martin and Llewellyn have, is that telling stories from the different perspectives, different folks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I couldn't get used to his writing style, and there was a lot of just
there's
a
lot
in
of
those
ick.
books.
There's a lot of ick.
There's a lot of stuff in those books that, having personally dealt with, I
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Right. It's not for everybody.
But yeah, so the good news is that we're going to be doing this for an hour every other week. So we're going to be starting on the 11th, so next week.
311.
Dude.
Everyone's favorite band in high school. I'm kidding. It wasn't everyone's.
I think I was too young for that.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
311 hit for me in high school, and it was big in college.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. You could just walk through the MSU's equivalent of the quad.
Yep.
And hear 311 playing on somebody's, as they're playing hacky sack or doing disc golf.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So we're going to be doing this every other Thursday, starting 311, and we're going to have more of a cohesive idea of what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, we'll hit a topic.
We'll have a topic, and I'm trying to put 2 or 3 in at a time. So if you look on our YouTube channel, you'll see there are a few more live streams planned. As we come up with ideas on what we want to talk about, those will have titles and everything. And if you don't already subscribe to our channel, of course, please subscribe to our channel. It does help us out with the algorithm, blah, 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 blah. I know you're sick of hearing it, but...
like and subscribe!
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, you don't have to like it. Just subscribe, really.
I'm gonna put the copy out there. Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Share it with your friends. Anyway.
Share it with their friends.
Yeah. Make friends so that you can share it.
Tape their eyeballs open so that they don't close their eyes.
Gotta make them watch.
You gotta make them.
Take the eyelids off. Anyway,
no, don't take the eyelids. No,
that's a bad.
We don't. No.
Do not endorse mutilation.
No, not in any way, shape, or form.
In your stories, on the other hand.
Yeah, you can mutilate whoever you want in your stories. You know, kill your mom, whatever.
Just reminded me a lot of Game Grumps.
There, yeah.
But for different reasons. So
yeah. We'll be doing this next Thursday, and I think we might just start with the Nugget and work from there.
There you go.
We'll have to find a nugget for the episode, though.
We got to build out from it.
Got to build out.
It's just like a game of canasta. How, Steve? How? We're not going to explain any of it.
Oh, why would we do that? So, anyway, we'll see you guys soon. We're going to go ahead and end here.
All right.
Thanks so much for joining us, and have a good day. Bye.
All right. Peace out, Cub Scout.